The Asus ROG Phone 3 is the first smartphone in the world to house the impressive Snapdragon 865 Plus processing chip. I have the 10-cent version of the phone, which is only found in China. The specs at the top and in relation to the price there as well, compared to the Euro price, I know that the rupees started around 50,000. We have this awesome Aero case in the box over here, much better than a standard TPU case. We also get a nice little dongle here to switch from USB Type-C to a headphone jack, and we have a Type-C to Type-C braided cable. We get a 30-watt hypercharged charging block in the box this time around. Last year's 10-cent edition only came paired with an 18-watt block in the box, so you had to splurge extra for the hypercharged 30-watt block. Here is the back of the device itself. The color is known as black glare, and you can see why it looks absolutely phenomenal. This is the only color variant you get in the phone. It would be nice to get different color options, but nonetheless, this is the variant you get. The cover looks awesome, but unfortunately it doesn't really protect the camera bump. But otherwise, the actual design of the cover and the feel of it just feels absolutely incredible, much better than any other free case that you get in any other smartphone box out there. The LED light at the back looks absolutely amazing, and of course you can customize it the way that you'd like using color cycle, strobing, or breathing effects that you can change within the settings of the phone itself. It looks very elegant and sleek compared to other smartphone devices, which most of the time are usually too over the top for me. We have an aerodynamic system over here, which is a copper heatsink, which is 6 times larger than that of the ROG Phone 2. We have the ROG Air Trigger 3 technology as bumper triggers at the top, which are indeed ultrasonic and have up to 4 inputs this time around. I just don't like that they are so smooth. I prefer the indentation that you see on something such as the Red Magic 5G or the actual physical pop-up triggers that you see on something like the Black Shark 3 Pro. So they are pretty hard to find, but if you slap on your Aero case, it makes it a little bit easier over there. On the right side of the phone, we have the red accent colored power button. We also have quite a large volume rock over there, though it is unfortunately not split. We have a dual SIM tray here, and unfortunately no room for a micro SD card slot. On the left of the device, we actually find the accessory port once you can get it open, which is paired next to a USB Type-C. This is actually the charging port that you should use that supports the hypercharge 30 watt. And if you use it to charge your phone while gaming, it makes it a lot more convenient even when using headphones while gaming, so you don't have to worry about the obstruction that you would usually have from a side-mounted one on a regular smartphone. The bottom Type-C port is only USB 2.0 and the side-mounted one is USB 3.1. We have some pretty awesome battery care options here. You can actually set the charging limits to 80%, which is 4,800 milliamps, which is absolutely superb. We can also use slow charging over here to better reduce damage of degrading our battery over time. They even give you a battery caring tip saying that you should not overcharge your smartphone. We have dual front-facing stereo speakers here, and they are the same size at the top and the bottom, which is something that you don't really see in smartphones that generally have front-facing speakers. The Asus ROG Phone 3 looks absolutely fantastic, and compared to other gaming phones, it is a lot more sleek looking. It is a little bit thicker, and the camera bump is protruding a lot more than the other phones. It is quite heavier than the Red Magic 5G, a little bit lighter than the monster massive Black Shark 3 Pro, but not by much, and it is definitely heavier than the Samsung, a little bit taller and a little bit thicker as well. The rocking effect of the phone itself is due to the camera, where the other gaming phones is due to the curves at the back. The Samsung, of course, the camera as well. We have an aluminum frame here with Gorilla Glass 6 on the front and Gorilla Glass 3 at the back of the device, so the back is not the strongest. I do prefer matte finish smartphones. I wish that they would bring this to gaming smartphones. I hope they do in the future. The Asus ROG Phone 3 looks absolutely stunning at the back, but what do you look at most when you're using your ROG Phone 3? Well, it is going to be that display. We have a 6.59-inch AMOLED display with 1 billion colors, something that you don't see very often, 113% DCI P3 color gamut, 650 nits peak brightness, 144 Hz refresh rate, 270 Hz touch sampling rate, and 25 milliseconds and 18 milliseconds touch and swipe latency respectively. 7.1-inch mammoth of a screen on the left-hand side there, Black Shark, compared to the slightly smaller one in the middle there on the ROG Phone 3. I can say that the borders don't bother me too much, though they are the biggest gaming borders that I have seen on a phone. It will mean that your palms don't really touch the screen when gaming. We're going to compare the 60 to the 90 to the 120 to the 144 Hz options On the ROG Phone 3 here, we're going to slow it down and see if there is a big difference between the two on the right there, especially because the ROG Phone 2 came with 120Hz display. So should you upgrade for this reason alone? In my opinion, no. You can see the frames between the two on the right are so similar, guys. In my opinion, you're not going to actually feel any difference between 120 and 144Hz display on a smartphone. When it comes to other smartphones, though, we have the two gaming phones here, being the Red Magic 5G, also with 144Hz, the Black Shark all the way on the left with 90Hz, that's the max there, 120Hz on the Samsung, which is not a gaming phone, just thought I'd show you guys over here. You can see the two phones in the middle are pretty similar. Obviously, they are both 144Hz. The 120 on the Samsung is so similar, but of course the Black Shark doesn't look quite as smooth with the 90Hz display. We don't have many different options to change when it comes to the display, but we do have dark mode. We can also change the color temperature over here. Dark mode is what you would expect on any AMOLED screen these days, as well as an always on display panel, which you would also expect on other phones these days, though at least we have more options this time around with the ROG Phone 3. We also have a little under display fingerprint sensor over here. I say little because it is little. I wish that these things would get bigger. Nevertheless, it is indeed optical, very similar to the one found on the ROG Phone 2 before it. It works just as fast as any other phone around, maybe a little bit slower than the Black Shark, a little bit faster than the Red Magic. Like I said, it's much of a muchness. I like the placement of the fingerprint sensor, that it is high up. It is a lot easier to reach than other gaming smartphones. When it comes to face unlock, we are stuck to 2D face unlock, so it is not very secure. And speed wise, it is pretty similar to the Black Shark 3 Pro, though there is a little bit of an animation over there, and compared to the Red Magic 5G, it is quite a bit faster in this respect. The launcher that we have is Zen UI, or ROG UI, some like to call it. It is the closest that Zen UI has ever been to stock Android. We have some really awesome gaming themes that you get out of the box over here, and when you squeeze for a long period to enable X mode, then you get this wonderful animation on these light or dark themes respectively, and it changes a little bit of a border around each icon to red. I prefer the classic skin though. In my opinion, this looks the best for an everyday smartphone user. Of course, if you're gaming centric, then you're gonna want to use one of the gaming themes, but I prefer this. Yes, you can still use X mode with it enabled, and you can also change the wallpaper if you don't really like that. Like I said, it is very stock Android-like compared to previous generations of ROG phones. We're talking about that squeeze that I was doing earlier. You can actually use a short squeeze and a long squeeze to open any personalized application that you'd like, but you can also change it to switch between vibrate, mute, as well as loud, such as that you would see on the OnePlus 8 Pro, or you would see on the iPhone 11 Pro Max, though I feel like the gesture style of doing it on the ROG is a lot easier to do. We also have full screen gestures over here, and we have something called power button menu style changer. I've never thought I'd say that before. We can also change the status bar icons at the top, and we have a wonderful LED notification light at the top left of the screen, which is awesome, and the haptics feel absolutely incredible on the device. We have something called OptiFlex over here, which accelerates app launches and reduces app reloads, which is something you don't really see that often. And now we're getting into performance. So we have the Armory crate over here, which is where you can manually set X mode, and we have a maximum CPU frequency, which you can change almost 3.1 gigahertz, guys, in a smartphone. Just take a moment and take that in. It does say fan speed over here, but that doesn't mean there is a fan inside the phone like you would see in the Red Magic 5G. You have to splurge extra for the actual clip-on accessory. We also have different settings for those touch triggers at the top of the phone. I like the slide setting. It kind of gives you a feel of an actual controller that you would use, or the dual partition button setting, which make you feel like you have bumpers and triggers that you would usually use on a controller. So let's get into some gaming over here. The first is going to be Call of Duty Mobile with a 60 FPS cap. Yes, the game is capped at 60, so even though you have a wonderful 144Hz display on the ROG Phone 3 that can actually go to 144 FPS, if you're playing a game that is capped at 60, such as COD Mobile, then you're only going to get a 60 FPS. As you can see at the top, it is extremely stable. We have really nice display options at the top there, which can read to your CPU, GPU percentage that you're using, your heat to FPS, and how long is estimated that you can still play for at the top right. It's currently saying 10 hours, which is absolutely mental. The interesting thing about the dual partitions though is that we can use them as 4 inputs instead of 2. So I have the aim down sight on the very left, and then just inner of that I have the crouch option. On the right hand side I have shoot and reload. We also have dual front facing stereo speakers, so let's have a listen to that.
Grenade out! Contact with enemy.
The speakers sound absolutely phenomenal. Here is PUBG Mobile max settings over here. This is the global version.
Kill. Clear. Target down. Reloading.
And here is the Game for Peace version of PUBG. It's actually the Chinese version of PUBG. You can actually get up to 90 frames per second using the smooth graphics settings, which is the lowest graphics setting over here. $90 FPS, guys, very stable over here. Really awesome to see in a gaming phone such as the ROG Phone 3. Bullet Force, no FPS cap, so we're going to be seeing 144 FPS. As you guys can see at the top over there, 144. And then Dead Trigger 2 over here, also no FPS cap, so we're going to be seeing 144 once more. But the cool thing I'm going to show you guys now is macro. So you can actually do macro bindings over here, you can record a macro layout, and then you can hit play over here, and then you don't have to actually touch the device. This will really help with RPG games, so role-playing games, massive multiplayer online games that many of you will play, where you have those tedious combinations you always have to click. This will really help you in that situation. It works really well here, even with a shooting game, I must say, with a really long loadout over there, and it worked really well. As you can see, we're getting a pretty stable 135, 144 FPS over here, so it's fluctuating a little bit, and we also have a crosshair option. This is true 144 FPS gaming. Though performance is not all about gaming, let's run some benchmarks. We're going to start with AnTuTu version 8.4 over here. There was the battery and CPU degrees in Celsius at the start of the test. I'll compare this at the end. Now I have put it into X mode, and I've also plugged the FPS counter at the top over there. As you can see, this is the most hectic part of the AnTuTu benchmark. We're only sitting at around 16 FPS over there. That's pretty common. We have a battery drain over here, minus 5%, which is pretty much the same as average drain. Temperature for the battery has added 6.2 degrees in Celsius, which is a lot more than the average 2.7 degrees Celsius that you would usually see in a vanilla Snapdragon 865 processing chip phone. And the CPU is also pretty bad, adding 6 degrees Celsius over here with a peak of 47 degrees Celsius, which is a lot worse than the average adding of 3.5 degrees Celsius with the vanilla Snapdragon 865 processing chip. The ROG Phone 3 scored over 600,000, so that's a good thing. 614,000. This is only 5.3% better than the average vanilla Snapdragon 865 processing chip score. Now we're going to go ahead and run Geekbench of 5.2 over here. The single core score on the ROG Phone 3 is just 0.66% better, and the multi-core is just 1.05% better than the average Snapdragon 865 processing chip score. So I guess you could say that the CPU has not really improved by much. As for GPU though, things are a little bit different with OpenCL GPU API benchmark testing over here. We got a 14.66% increase, and with a heavier hitting Vulkan API, we got almost a 20% increase than the average Snapdragon 865 powered smartphone. But this phone is not only about gaming and performance. We also have a decent camera setup over here. We have a 24 megapixel selfie snapper, which can be binned down to 6 megapixels. The 24 megapixel selfie looks great. 6 megapixel bin looks even better. And the bokeh effects look absolutely stunning with pretty much no edge detection whatsoever. What's up guys, this is TechNick recording a 1080p 60 FPS video on the Asus ROG Phone 3. Yes, the selfie video can record up to 60 frames per second using Full HD, which is absolutely phenomenal for a gaming smartphone. Let me know what you guys think of the video and audio quality of the Asus
ROG Phone 3.
At the back of the ROG Phone 3, we have a 64 megapixel IMX686 sensor, a 13 megapixel ultra wide, and a disappointing 5 megapixel macro. We also have EIS, so no optical image stabilization here, and a variety of different video options too, with the highlight being 8K 30 FPS. 13 megapixel ultra wide looks great. 64 megapixel main looks pretty standard. The bench shot looks a lot better. 2 times zoom is only digital over here, no telephoto. Looks terrible at 5 times. 8 times is the max zoom, which looks absolutely unusable. 13 megapixel ultra wide once again looks stunning. 64 megapixel main very neutral. 16 megapixel bin absolutely fantastic. And as soon as we pass that 1 times to go into 2 times, 5 times, and 8 times zoom, I don't recommend this, guys, especially on a gaming phone such as this. Using a portrait mode of a human being, which is me over here, the bokeh looks absolutely phenomenal, and of an object as well, using the bokeh effect, which is indeed portrait effect. Pretty much no edge detection once again. Getting close up and personal, you can't use it with the main camera, but you switch to that macro shot and it looks absolutely fantastic. I must say, not the best macro sensor I've seen around. It is kind of useless, but it's there if you want it. Here is 1080p at 60 frames per second using the main camera at the back. We do have gyro electronic image stabilization. It looks pretty fantastic. I think 4K at 60 FPS looks even better. I'm glad we have 4K at 60. Many gaming phones drop 4K down to 30, so that's good to see. We also have 8K at 30 FPS. Some gaming phones don't include 8K at all, so this is a nice feature. And we actually do have electronic image stabilization at 8K, which looks great. Moving around, it doesn't look the best, though when standing still, things look absolutely phenomenal. Moving on to ultra wide video, we have 1080p at 60 FPS ultra wide, which looks pretty snazzy, nice and detailed. We also have 4K ultra wide, but this is capped at 30 FPS. You can't get up to 60 when using the ultra wide 4K option. When it comes to stabilization, we can only use 1080p at 30 FPS. Right now you're seeing stabilization off. This is using the main camera. We're going to switch it on right now, and you can see the loss in quality is not worth the stabilization gain at all. We're going to test out ultra wide stabilization now. Once again, it is off. It looks fantastic with the regular mode over here, 1080p 30 FPS. We're going to use the same 1080p 30 FPS, turn it on. Once again, guys, the detail is not worth the cost for the stabilization enabled over here. The Asus ROG Phone 3 is like an Apple iPhone. It hasn't changed too much on the outside, but what has improved internally has been spectacular. The 144Hz refresh rate alone is a must for a gaming smartphone in 2020, and it does a fantastic job at it. I'm also really happy that they only release one gaming smartphone a year. It puts other flagship phones in the dust, but it does have some competition when it comes to the gaming category over here, such as the Black Shark and the Red Magic. So it's really hard to choose between the 3 devices here, though I do absolutely love the sleek, elegant, and hidden design of the ROG Phone 3. Gaming smartphones might not be for everyone, but the ROG Phone 3 just might be.